Hey Fred, can you fetch a half calf, half soy, half pumpkin spice chai tea latte with an organic fair trade espresso shot on the side?
Copy you.
Today we got Jack Sparks, Jack Wesley Sparks. And do you want to tell him how we met, or do you want to?
I think we'll probably both chime in on that, which is probably sounds like the most normal thing to do. But we met on an episode of Naked and Afraid in Nicaragua.
That's right.
I'm being flown into Nicaragua. They flew us into
Costa Rica.
We flew into Costa Rica on a big plane, and then we took a little plane to the border of Costa Rica and Nicaragua, and we had to walk in from there. and these guys were straight up, jacked up military border crossing thing here. And I remember as I'm giving the guys my passport, you look nervous on the other side of the gate and everything, and you're like this. And I hadn't met you yet, so. And I remember I was trying to use Spanish, talk to this guy in there. They asked me what my profession is. And I say, sonanista. And they thought I said sandinista. And Nicaraguans, if anyone knows anything about history, that's probably not a good thing. So I corrected myself, even though I thought I said it correctly the first time. And they just gave me this look. And I'm like, I'm with those guys over there, I think. And they let me through, and I got to meet you. And we sat down, and like all people in production do, they're like, we play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, who we know, what we've all worked on, that we might have, mutual friends from and everything. And that location was really wild because flying in, there had been a hurricane 6 months earlier.
Wiped out. There's no canopy.
There's no canopy. We're used to the canopy because that's where you hide and keep out of the sun.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. And we had flown in with that male cast member.
That's right. I forgot about him.
And he was just kind of looking like, what the fuck? And I was, at the same time, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be interesting. Because I think at that point, that was like my 4th or 5th Naked and Afraid episode.
All right.
And so I kind of knew what to expect. At that point, it was semi-old hat for me. Yeah. And, we're prepping and everything. And, we're having dinners, you, me, and Eric Voss, who you've had on here, I guess. Yep. And we had Daniel was our producer on that. And we have all these little black and white monkeys all around us waiting to steal food off of our table, And we're in this like old lodge that's in complete disrepair. Half of it, like the roof was falling off.
Yeah, that was rough.
But for me, I was just like, this is kind of how production is most of the time, the places and things that I go and see and do.
That one, the one I remember most about that place was every night I was petrified I was going to step on one of those massive spiders. Yeah. And the one night I didn't wear my slippers, I step out and I step right on this spider and it still runs away. Yeah. Like, it was so big, it took my weight and still took off. Yeah. I was like, this is the worst. I still could not believe the size of the spiders. That location
was very notorious for finding really big, centipedes and
all of them.
Millipedes and like all these bugs in the
There was a 9-foot croc right in the boat ramp right there. I thought it was going to take out that one producer, just kept going down to kayak. I was like, I think that thing's going to get you.
And you would, so as we were playing the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, you're telling me about how you just line produced the XL3.
Oh, that's right.
In that location. I ended up shooting another episode in that same location later. So by the time I got there, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard about this.
Nice.
And, but you were fucking so cool, man. You were like, dude, we got to go fishing. I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, and I haven't fished, since I was a little kid, and my dad would go fishing, or my cousin and I would take the sewers from our neighborhood down to the bay, because we lived really close to the bay, but we would take all our fishing gear and go through the sewers to get down there. It was like the safest way to cross the highway to get to the bay. And so I hadn't been fishing in a long time, but you were like, we got to go fishing. I'm like, this guy wants to do some cool shit. Like, let's just go do it. It's going to be fucking fun before we start this episode. So you set up this whole fishing trip.
That's right.
And really the only fish out there is tarpon. Yep. And it's known for that because tarpon are like plentiful out there.
Oh yeah.
And we set out, and you and me and Eric Foster on this same boat together, and slip the boat captain a little extra cheese, you know. We throw our lines out or whatever, and with some regular bait. And the captain finally goes, "Nah," he's like, "I'm gonna help you catch a fish, right? We're gonna get a real fish." And he catches a little like catfish about this size.
Yep.
And he puts that whole thing on the hook. And I put that thing out. That little fish starts swimming. And next thing you know, I'm hooked up to a 6-foot,
It was massive.
180-pound tarpon.
We got a picture of that.
We got
massive.
quite a few pictures from that.
Massive.
Now Charlie, our AC, she's on another boat with another captain.
That's right.
And, I can't remember who else was out there
She
with
was
us.
out with the host, female host of the show, and then the other producer.
And so 45 minutes I'm fighting this fish.
At least.
Like tooth and nail on a pole that's meant to catch like maybe a 10-pound fish.
Did it break?
It did. It broke. It broke. And I can send you the pictures if you want to reference this in.
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
I've got them.
The boat captain gives no help with the motor. Like he's just, I'm going to let him fight it out and let the boat just drift. And I fought that thing tooth and nail for 45 minutes. Broke the pole. The fish is going around the boat, under the boat, around, and we're like following it around, trying to not get the line cut under the prop or snap, because I think it may have had 20-pound test on there, but just a big fucking fish.
That was huge.
It was as long as I am tall. Remember, because the picture is like me stretched out like this with a fish.
I still can't believe it.
And we brought that thing in, and I was just like, oh, I was so worn out. And we called it a day at that point. You were like, fuck it, I'm not fishing. It's like,
done.
We're done. We're done.
We're
And we went back, and tarpon's a really bony fish, so you're not going to get like steaks or anything out of it. It's going to be a pain in the ass to eat. But the people there, what they do is they dig out the meat and make it into little balls for like stew and stuff. So we fed 5 families off of that one fish.
Yeah.
We gave it to the captain, like share this with
they took it right in the community.
locals. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that solidified my brotherhood with you that day.
Oh,
man.
that was amazing. That was a great little trip. That was a great trip.
It was wild, man.
Yeah.
And there was nights. We had another couple storms come through on that one. Right. Remember?
Yeah.
And we would wake up at 4 a.m. and there's 6 inches of water.
That was
throughout our whole rooms.
No canopy because of this stuff. So all that water was just getting through from the rainforest.
Yeah.
Usually we got like protection from it and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just coming straight through.
Coming through, man.
What originally attracted you to the entertainment industry? What brought you into it?
So I was in a punk band in the 90s, and I left that to go back to Florida because I was living out in California after we got signed to a little independent label. And I was working for my dad for a while doing accident reconstruction of like car crashes. So they come, to what's called impulse, and then they come back and to rest, so you work backwards and basically figure out who was doing what and how fast they were going for insurance companies and attorneys. And I did that for about 7 years. I was working on a physics degree at the time, and I saw some really gnarly accidents. I would get a lot of like highway patrol reports, and towards the end, I got this one highway patrol report. They send you pictures of these people, and you see the reports, and then this woman could have been my mom, and then there's also these pictures of her brain matter, her gray matter, strewn across the roadway, and I was just like, fuck, man, what am this is not. I don't love this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could make money at it, but it's not what I want to do. And so it was probably a disappointment to my pop, but I've, been a disappointment to him a lot of times probably, even though I know he loves me, and everything. I love him. And so I decided, I started looking around at things that really interested me, and probably some new training, schooling, and whatnot. So, and I found this place in Orlando called Full Sail. And I was like, well, I want to record bands and, get into audio recording. And so I went there, and it was kind of like a a really accelerated program. I would go to school for basically 16 hours a day and can get an associate's degree in audio recording in 1 year's time. So I did that. I moved down to Orlando, did that. And as soon as I was done with that, I was like, well, I'm not going to make money if I go back to Pensacola where I grew up and I live currently again. But I was like, I know plenty of people in Los Angeles. So I just basically packed my shit up from Orlando, stopped in Pensacola on the way for a few days, and then trucked back to Los Angeles. And I worked in a studio called Mad Dog Studios for some time. I interviewed a lot of the bigger kind of independent and well-named cello studios. I interviewed with them. I went to Capitol Records and they gave me an interview and a tour of the studio and everything. And I met Radiohead sitting in the lobby of Capitol Records. And I'm like, fuck, I love Radiohead, dude. One of the guitarists, I didn't realize, one of the guitarists just sat down next to me. He started asking me questions. And I look over, I'm like, fuck, I know you. And then I look up and then, you know, the rest of the band's coming at me. I'm just like, holy fuck, this is Radiohead. And I was just like, wow, they had just gotten done doing a big live recording in the A and B studio. They can open up the wall in the middle of Capitol and use both studios and big sound and lots of great gear. But I ended up working at a studio as an intern for a little bit, and then at this guy, Dusty Wakeman, legendary bass player, great guy. His recording studio called Mad Dog Studios. It was over here in Burbank. And I worked there for a little bit, and but he ended up kind of closing it down, making it from a public studio to a private studio, and leasing out part of it to like a Foley studio.
Oh, okay. And
because that was when, you know, everybody was getting a Pro Tools rig in their home. So, you know, the bigger studios, a lot of them were trying to, you know, make it through that time. And really all you would come into studios like that would be to do any kind of, like, we did some big band kind of stuff in there, you know, like big drum sounds and high quality or high polish vocal tracks for the most part. Some people would come in there and still do some guitar and bass and stuff and whatever, depending on their budgets. But so I did that for a little while. And then I started doing some art department stuff with one of my sister's ex-boyfriends. He was like an art director and later production designer. And I did a little bit of that. And I like that because it's like you're really kind of a glorified furniture mover, or you construction worker, and a kind of jack of all trades, master of none at that point. Probably still that way, but I'm fairly good at a lot of things that I try to do if I put my mind to it. And then I ended up going to a party. My sister's ex-boyfriend, he's like, hey, come to this party downtown. And I met this sound mixer. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you, you know. And he's like kind of bartending his own party and kind of blew me off a little bit. It was like, yeah, whatever, you know, nice to meet you. You know, I got an audio degree. I was working in studios and stuff, and gave him my number. Didn't expect anything from it. About 2 weeks later, he calls me. He's like, I'm stuck somewhere in an airport somewhere, and my flight's canceled, and I've got a music video tomorrow in the desert, in the high desert, in like Lancaster, with this band, Pygmy Love Circus. And I was like, oh, that band's rad. This is the drummer from Tool was the drummer for that band at the time. And he's like, you know, it's just music video playback. So it's just a DAT machine with time code and everything. And, you know, told me what I needed to do. And because I'd never done that before, but it seemed pretty easy because you just set up speakers and the band plays their pre-recorded track. They gave me the wrong DAT because there's two DATs in music video. And they gave me the master one that has the time code in the middle between the two channels of audio. But I had a DAT, and they're supposed to do a drop down and all this technical shit, basically. But they're supposed to give me a DAT that had time code on one audio track and then a mono track on the other side so you could sync the slate and everything. Well, I was like, yeah, it's not working, and we figured out why. And so I did that job, and I was like, well, I know it wasn't my fault, but it'll probably be looked upon as my fault because they messed up. Can't really work around that. But we did the playback, and they still did. And the music video happened anyway. And so he started calling me for other jobs to come boom for him, you know. And then I later did some mixing jobs for him because he was getting like a lot of jobs and having his buddies do different things. He was just trying to get all the contracts, you know, like a lot of hustlers do in the industry. And so, and then I started into production sound, and that was kind of like my foray into doing that instead of music in a studio with bands.
Nice. Music's played a huge part in your life.
Yeah.
Even now, you're in, I believe the band's called Glorious Flaws?
Glorious Flaws, yeah.
Punk rock specifically.
Punk, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you, or have you ever been able to bring that punk rock ethos into reality television? And if so, how?
Yes. You know, especially with like union jobs, how, you know, in union jobs versus non-union jobs, you know, sometimes the non-union jobs, sometimes the sound guy will help the AC carry in camera stuff or whatever, you know. And union jobs notoriously are like, if it's not your department, don't even fucking touch it, you know, especially like grip guys, you know, they're like, you know, if you even like bump a C-stand, they're, you know, yell reset, you know, and, you know, and, you know, it's like, there's the jokes of like, you know, how do you know where to put a light? It's like, wait till the boom guy sets up and see where he's standing and then tell him, oh no, that's where I'm going to put a fucking light. Right. And that is, I found that to be very true, not just a joke, you know, and comedies like that. There's an ounce of truth in there too. Yeah. It would make it more believable and probably even more so funny. But especially on these harder jobs where, you know, you're out in the elements and reality documentary stuff. The punk rock ethos for me has always been, you know, with the pit, you know, if somebody falls down, you're in the pit, pick them up. Fucking pick them up. Even if you don't know them, don't let them get stomped on, pick them up. And I kind of bring that in my way is like, you may not be in my department, you know, but if you're falling or faltering or whatever, I'm going to help pick you up however I can. That's awesome. Yeah.
How important is that camaraderie and set, and does it carry off into your personal life as well with the crew members?
I wouldn't have it any other way. I need it because it makes me feel more connected. And, you know, not everybody is easily led to that. You know, a lot of people are kind of fronting still because they don't feel so secure in their own position.
Yeah.
But like, you know, on those non-union jobs, reality stuff, like you got to look out for each other because you're usually working in an even smaller, you know, 2 camera, 1 sound, 1 AC, and you got to look out for each other because you don't know what snake or fucking poisonous bug or tree root fucking oil or whatever could take you down. I mean, I've had tree oil go down the back of my shirt, and next thing I know, my entire back is on fire, you know, and in the Philippines, and then medics are looking at me like, yeah, you got under something. You know, like, oh, awesome.
That's helpful.
You know, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you got to look out for each other, and if we don't, who are we? Are we really humans? You know, like we're in nature. We're part of nature. We're if we're too busy trying to separate ourselves from nature because we think we lord over this world, like, what are we really doing?
Yeah, we all have that one mistake in our career.
I've got more.
Is that, you know, the one that just haunts you, the one that creeps into the shower. Like you're like, I wasn't even thinking of this day, and it just constantly bugs you. What's the one for you that pops?
I've got a couple, and it was early on. I was hired to record this band, multi-track this band, and they were going to do a video shoot of it. And I'd gotten this hard drive recorder system. Something happened. I was live mixing it and recording it. I gave them, it was like one of those things where you pull a drive out and you can hand it over and they can take that into the studio and whatever. Well, there's 2 drives in it. I gave them one. It didn't mirror to both of them. And I returned all the gear, and the band came back to me. There's nothing on it. And I went back to the rental house, and they had already wiped the shit.
Oh.
I was like, fuck. So all I had from that was the kind of the rough mix that I'd pushed to camera and everything. I'd still like punch myself in the face mentally on that one. You have to learn you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up. And you have to own up to it, you know? And even our EPs and everything and within my department on like Naked and Afraid and the bigger shows, I tell them, even in so I write out an audio Bible for my crew with all the specs and kind of the ways we do things to get around the fact that we don't always have a mixer for every camera. And, you know, I write at the end of it, hey, we all mess up. You know, if you mess up, it's going to be okay. We'll figure it out. Own up to it. It helps us figure it. Don't hide it.
Yeah.
Because that's you're doing the show a disservice and yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to find out anyway. They're going to figure out that there's audio missing or there's camera footage missing, be it the DIT or somebody double punched on the camera or whatever.
Right.
Just own up to it. We'll figure it out. We all make mistakes at some point. It's run and gun. Like, we're going through it, and there's so much to look out for and each other and things in the way, and you got to own up to it and know that it's probably not your first and probably won't be your last. And it's okay. But if you own up to it, it'll be that reminder. If you try to hide it from everybody, then you're also trying to hide it from yourself, and you're bound to make the mistake again. Yeah.
You've been a part of a variety of different reality shows, and the medium itself has sometimes been criticized as a lowly form of entertainment or something like that. What have you learned, or what would you like to tell people that they might not know about reality television?
A lot of reality television can be kind of like set up, you know. Most of these people wouldn't be there doing what they were doing unless there was a camera there. But it can also change people's lives in a kind of a positive way, as long as they can have a modicum of, you know, humility still about themselves and not feel like they're, you know, Hollywood's greatest, like you're on a reality TV show. We're not talking about, you're not going to win an Emmy for this. But you can meet a lot of really amazing, interesting people, you know, that are on-screen cast members as well as crew behind the scenes. And I've made a lot of really cool friendships that, you know, I still keep in touch with a lot of people these days. You know, I end up with a fondness of a lot of people that I still just want to be able to reach out every now and again and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I care about you and wanted to know that you're doing well. Hear your voice or just know that you're doing well, you know.
Nice.
And, but reality television has taken me to some really interesting places across the globe. It's really opened my eyes to a lot of history. I feel like I'm more like into history now to like understand the world and why things are the way they are in the world, you know. And because I've gone all these places now, I'm like more connected to those places and those people and understand the history behind things like the Iran-Contra, the Sandinista thing. And like, you know, you learn more about that when you're kind of forced into that location that has a storied history and you want to know that story outside of like, it has nothing to do with whatever you're shooting.
Yeah.
But it gives you just a better understanding.
You mentioned Sandinista.
Yeah.
Do you remember the old boat driver that we would have during the day, that really old guy? There was like a Manolo guy or whatever. There was one really old guy.
Yeah.
He was like...
He was a Sandinista.
Yeah, and they were literally like, the one producer's like, where's this boat? And he's like going, I'm like, yo, stop yelling at that guy. Like, he skinned people alive, man. Like,
no, I'm going to tell you this. You have to treat the locals nice. You're a guest in their country. And I've had crew members that I've had to have talks with, and some of them several times. Like, we're guests here. You don't do that.
That leads me to a question then. We all know going into these international shows as groups we go in, a big part of the crew ends up being locals.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they become like family.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone into a place where they actually were hostile or not friendly to the crew or not happy that you were there?
Peru was a tough one, and the fixer that we ended up with, I have a good friend who's a Secret Service agent that I lean on every now and again, who can kind of do some deep dives on people for me when I know I'm in a country that maybe has checkered history and, you know, can be kind of a country that maybe, you know, criminal element kind of runs a little freer than normal. So I was like, man, this fixer is really not working out for production. Our PM's losing his mind. Our line producer is kind of nowhere to be found. And our executive producer, he was losing his mind, and we weren't getting the support that we needed from this fixer and his people. So I had the Secret Service buddy of mine that I had worked on another show with. We're on a background, and he's like, if you can get his birthday, cool. If you can't, get me a picture. So I had to like sneak a picture like of this guy. And he's like, dude, you're so hilarious, dude. You're great. He gets back to me the next day. He's like, yeah, he's kind of a, you know, shady guy, low criminal element, whatever. Like, he's no good. You should probably try to extricate yourself from that. I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. But at least it helps us know what we're working with, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We flew into Iquitos, and then we had to come back east up the Amazon River a little bit. We were off the tributaries of the Amazon River, and we were staying on two, like, river barges. The whole crew was staying on these two river barges that were tied together and then kind of, like, run aground, and that was our living quarters. You know, you're talking about 45 American crew. And then, you know, we're interfacing with Peruvian locals as our support and fixer team. And man, that was a tough one. That was a Hearts of Darkness. But, you know, one of my sound mixers, Matt Stouter, loved the guy. He was like, you know, like, as hard as it was, we were still all together, and we would just laugh at what we could. And we had these amazing boat rides in and to and from location every morning and evening, even though some of them, you know, like, we tried to go back one night and it just started pissing rain on us while we're on the boat. There's no canopy, you know, we're just on these little fast boats and these little tributaries trying to get back out to the Amazon to where we were staying overnight. We had to turn back and go to the producer's lodge and sit there for like hours, you know, and so we were only really shooting maybe 6 to 8 hours a day tops on that because of the commutes and stuff. You know? And that's just kind of
how
that show typically goes, because we were really remote 95% of the time.
You did a show called Sacred Steel Bikes?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay, how do you motorcycles going off like that all day long? How are you?
That was easy. I'm ready for that. You know that. Man,
boom it off.
I'm going to tell you, man, that I probably had the most fucking fun with those guys.
Nice.
That I've ever had on any show. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it was a Discovery Channel show called Sacred Steel Bikes, and it's about this kind of misfits group of a bike club, not one percenters.
Yeah.
We're basically the fucking misfits. And I say we because at the end of it, I ended up in the club. Now, they're misfits, you know, but it's all brotherly, it's all love, and that was in 2016. It's 2025, and I just saw 3 of them the other night. After I flew in, I went and visited with them because I love them so much. They're fucking hilarious people, just like really talented at building, making bikes, doing other things, and creative people, and fucking funny fucking fucks. And they were like, you know, that we had wrapped the show, and we kind of broke the fourth wall on that a lot. You know, the camera guys will pan over to me while I'm back there mixing and just fucking laughing at all the shenanigans on set, you know, because they're like pranksters on each other and just make the most ridiculous looking bikes, paint the bike pink or whatever and put fucking dragons on it or what, just goofy ass shit. You don't take yourself too seriously, And we'd wrap the show and they would have church, what they call church, every Thursday night. And that the first Thursday night after we had already wrapped the show, I was at the gas station buying beer and filling up my wife's car to go up for church, and Velvet, we can call him Velvet, that's his, kind of name. He called me, he's like, hey Jack, you coming to church? I was like, I'm already buying beer with it. And man, we've had some wacky blast fun times. Which is, and Douche LaRouche, that's the club name, Douche LaRouche. That is the name. We're LaRouche, right? We have a Japan chapter. I think we actually have 2 Japan chapters. We have 2 Spain chapters. We've got a chapter in Ohio, chapter in San Diego, chapter in San Diego, Arizona chapter, Vegas chapter. We had a Florida chapter, but that shit got nixed. Florida's really gnarly. The Outlaws and Warlocks and fucking those guys do not fuck around. And when you get down in like Central and South Florida, Daytona, it's territorial shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oof. You don't want to fuck around with those kind of bike clubs, man. 1%ers, man. I mean, they had a party for the show here in LA, and we had Mongols, we had Vagos.
Ooh.
Yeah. And every one of those clubs, the biggest fucking guy in there, his name's Monster. None of those guys smile. And you don't want to fuck around with those guys.
No.
But if you show them respect, if they show up, you fucking shake their hand, you look them in the eye, say, welcome, fucking, can I get you anything? Get them a beer. Usually they'll hang out for a little while. And, they'll say, thank you for the hospitality. And then they'll leave. And,
You're okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
When I was first coming up, I had this French producer, and he basically was like, at the end of your career, the only thing you're really going to have are your stories.
That's it.
That's all you're going to have.
Yeah.
Just enjoy your stories.
Yeah.
What's the one story that you enjoy telling the most about what you've done in this business?
I got a lot of stories that I enjoy telling when they're kind of appropriate, depending on, like I thoroughly involved my whole run, because the Sacred Steel Bikes was supposed to be a 2-month show. And for me as a sound guy, like some shows, they'll rent gear from you. So once they rent your gear and you got labor, you're like double dipping. You're making good money. I was like, 2 months. And then, do you know Eric Lang?
Yeah, I know Eric Lang. I was out in like Washington State.
My brother.
With him. Yeah.
He brought me on that show.
I had a 2-hour drive going upstate Washington State to a reserve for some show. And we did a 2-hour drive and got the best burger in the middle of nowhere. And that's how I remember him to this day, is the burger.
I've worked on a lot of rad shows thanks to Eric
awesome.
Lane. And I fucking love that guy. He's always a blast. Like,
me and him hooked up.
He's never a dick.
Yeah.
He's always just like laughing and like,
yep.
We have such a storied history together.
Awesome.
And he brought me on Sacred Steel Bikes. And I show up and kind of get an idea and lay of the land and figure out how I'm going to do this, because they're going to have 2 or 3 camera operators, and I'm going to be the only sound guy. And I've got a rotating cast of like anywhere from 9 or 10 guys that could show up at any one time, And so it was slated to be 2 months. And then they told me, yeah, we're going to build 8 bikes in 2 months. And I go, no, you're not.
That sounds like
from the ground up, 8 bikes, custom bikes in 2 months. I'm like, no, you're not. And I looked at Lang and like, no, you're not. And he goes, no, we're not. That show went for 6 months.
Damn.
6 months. I made bank. And I thoroughly enjoyed every moment. The frustrations with gear, never really any frustrations with anybody crew-wise. or even Cass. Even when the Cass was like being ornery, I'm just like, it's all good, dude. I'm still fucking happy to be here, you know, because those guys are all my brothers now. There's stories that I enjoy telling about hard moments in life and things that you see in the world where you know it's not right and you have nothing that you can do about it to change it. I did a show called In Harm's Way.
Okay.
And the first episode was going to South Africa and following a husband and wife. And the husband was an animal trans relocationist, which means that he would be hired by these farms because they would sell their stock of animals, certain numbers, and to try to keep the ratio of female to male of any certain species skewed just enough so that, you know, and you got to keep the numbers at a certain certain numbers because the land can only feed so many animals, right? They call this guy in, and he basically like gets large numbers of them and moves them to take to other farms to sell them to other farmers. And his wife was basically a veterinarian. And so we followed them in what they did for 3 weeks. And man, this guy was like, he was like the Steve Irwin of South Africa. Wonderful family. They had 2 brand new little baby girls and a third one on the way. And we went to their home one night and had a wonderful braai. And just lovely people. And we followed them around for 3 weeks. We caught all these animals, and it was like wild. Like, I'm in the back seat. We got a camera guy in the other seat following, and this guy's driving this little mini, they call it Bucky, but it's a truck. And we're trying to catch these fucking wildebeest, right? And he's driving, we're fucking boom, 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 going through the tundra. No roads. We're not talking about roads. We're just driving through raw fucking land, smashing through brush, sagebrush kind of fucking shit. And he's like driving, and he reaches out, and we drive up next to this wildebeest, and he just grabs it by the horn and then starts bringing the vehicle to a stop, you know, and he's got it out the window holding on this wildebeest by fucking bare hand in this wildebeest by the horn. And he stops the truck and he starts to get out, and the camera guy gets out, I get out and come around, and he opens up the door holding on to this fucking wildebeest, and he gets out and fucking he's got both things by the horn, catch this wildebeest. It was the most amazing thing I'd seen, one of the most amazing things I'd seen. And he did like so many of those things, you know. And this couple was amazing. And we went and did another episode for that In Harm's Way. This guy was also known, like we would catch giraffes. They would catch giraffes. We would document, obviously. I say we, and like just because you're there and you're like part of it, you know. Yeah. It's amazing, and you're like in nature on like all these amazing animals. And this was my first time to South Africa too. Mm-hmm. But so he was also notorious, or known, and this is kind of how you do things. So they net gun or they dart animals. And net gunning is really dangerous because so the helicopter has to fly in what they call the devil's curve. Really low and really slow. So you have no altitude and you have no speed, and it's very dangerous. It's how a lot of helicopter crashes happen in places like that because they're flying in devil's curve with no altitude, no speed, because you're trying to get up on an animal and either dart it or net gun it. Now dart gun, you wear a harness and you get out away from the helicopter just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But with a net gun, you have to get really far out. And there's a possibility of falling out of the helicopter. We shoot the episode, everything goes fine. We get back to the States, and 4 days before that episode aired, we got word that he had fallen out of the helicopter while he was net gunning. And his wife is on the ground team. And she saw him fall out of the helicopter and die in front of her while she was moving in the Bucky on the ground team. And they were expecting their third baby. And I was just like, we had a viewing party at my house where a lot of the crew came through, and it was just like, holy shit.
Was there ever a moment you look back on in your career and you went, wow, that was too dangerous?
Yeah. I was doing a show up in Naknek, Alaska, on the bay there. We were doing a show about these little 32-foot boat salmon seine fishers, and like they have such a short window that they can catch, and it's like a free-for-all out there. And they have these aluminum boats, and they run their nets out, and they're doing like 30 knots out there, fast as shit. They're like power boats, but they're like, they'll bang into each other, like, and they're built like brick shit houses, so nobody's gonna sink. And they're buoyant as hell. And our boat was like this flat bottom river boat. There's only room for a camera guy on these little boats, but I'm the soup on it, and I'm out there kind of like providing material support and then for scene stuff. And they're going, and I'm like, there's a problem. I'm get over the radio, and there's a problem with so-and-so's fucking gear. And they're like, but the captain's not going to slow down for you to get on board and fix it. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to refuel in the air, aren't we? Fucking chasing this boat. We come up alongside it. I said, just get alongside. I'm going to just fucking jump. And we were probably about this far from it, 30 knots, moving 30 knots an hour. And I fucking just jump over onto it and going down into the cabin and take out whatever's going wrong with his shit. And yeah,
That's
you knew Jordan Moss too, right?
Yeah, Jordan.
He's dead.
Yeah, he
Rest in
passed.
peace.
Yeah, Jordan, of course. Jordan.
He was the showrunner on that. And
Are you serious?
He's like, Jackie boy, you're fucking crazy as a motherfucker. I'm like, well, that's why you keep hiring me. Just like you and Lane keep hiring me for these, because you know I'll do what needs to be done.
Moss was crazy too, though. He was a nut. Him telling you that he wouldn't jump, he would have jumped too.
That was a wild show too. And there was like we flew in on this little 4-seat plane into this place called Coffee Point, and we stayed in this rundown building with like black mold and whatever overnight to get these stories in Coffee Point of these land seine fishermen. They'll just run the net out from the land and catch their fish for the season that way, and then they leave for 6 months out of the year and go somewhere else. And so we did that, and that was gnarly because you land on this prop plane just right on the beach shore right there, and it's like probably as wide as this room. That's your runway is, and it's an angle. And
with all your shooting, what was your coolest moment that you look back on going, that was awesome? I was a part of that.
I've got a lot of those. I mean, I feel like I've been so lucky and I'm grateful with a lot of the shows that I've worked on. And I've been on a lot of shows that I really wanted to be there. It wasn't like this job. I want it to always be more than just a job and a paycheck.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy being there with the people that I'm working with the cast. There are people on camera who are amazing souls and are doing something interesting. There's cast members, like, we're not really supposed to, talk to the cast even after, but they search you out on social media and they want to friend you and follow you and everything. And I've met some great people. I've met some not so great people, but and you also have to remind yourself, not everybody has the same redeeming qualities. Mm-hmm. They may be a little crappy to you because they're going through this hard thing, but they're still people, and they're probably going through something in their. They're all looking for something in their life that's missing out of their life. Mm-hmm. And religion or their friends or whatever they're doing in their life for work or their hobbies are not completely filling that void, and they're coming and they're looking for like a life transformational change. Maybe they can prove themselves to themselves. And I love that for them.
Nice.
And I want to root for that for anybody in their life that wants to find that change or make themselves whole.
What have you learned about yourself through all of this?
I'm constantly reminded that I'm always learning, and I like that. And that I can be an asset to people in a way to help them better themselves while, it betters me at the same time. And you're never going to be ready enough. You just got to fucking do it. Like, as best you can, and with the tools that you're given.
A good plan now is better than the best plan tomorrow.
Yeah.
Looking at your career, what is the moment you're most proud of?
I'm just going to practice a moment of gratitude right now. I'm just grateful to be here with you.
Nice.
I'm still grateful to be in the business, even though right now, I mean, as you know very well know, and everybody in the business knows, like, shit is changing.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not a work out there. A lot of people are losing their homes. They're, not just to the fires that we've had here in LA recently, but they're losing their homes because, career editors that, are used to making, they're not getting jobs because it's all being farmed overseas and all the what people are putting their eyes on are not the same thing anymore. So now it's all influencers, one camera, straight to camera. They don't need all the production crew and everything.
Yep.
There's less seats on the bus now. So I'm grateful to be still doing it 20 plus years in now. I'm grateful to be working with some of the best in the business and wonderful humans just in general. I've done a lot of cool things and been a part of a lot of cool adventure, kind of things. And man, it's all come to this moment.
Jack, thank you so much for today. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I was so excited right from the beginning that you were coming.
We've been talking about doing this for 2 years.
Yeah. This is